went this weekend and we went and picked up some squash. I think it's squash. I'm trying to remember what it is I planted already. Some squash and some cucumbers and a cherry tomato, which means we got, I think, 4 kinds of tomatoes. So slowly but surely we're watching the garden grow, and I'm kind of excited. I can't wait to see what spring will do. And we protected from the winter, the winds that are coming, and the rain now we're going to get for a week, it looks like. So kind of watching out for that. But at the same time, it's awesome to watch and see how God can use something that's planted that He created in order to teach me and maybe to inspire you in a way you never thought of before. Because it says that God reveals Himself in all of creation, and the heavens tell His glory, and creation is handiwork. It's like you can see in so many things around you just the nature of God and the variety and how big He really is. I mean, that's the way I see it. Maybe you don't, but I look around me and I think, wow, God, you do a good job. I was wondering the other day when I was making a time change, that there's always these time changes going on, and I thought to myself, Self, have you thought of this? No, I haven't, Michael. What do you think? Well, Self, I think that, time changes is a little weird. Well, why do you think time change is weird, Michael? Well, Self, because after all, time is made by God. Well, sort of, Michael, because there's AM and PM, and then there's Greenwich time, and there's, all these other times that everywhere you go, there's a different time. Well, that's what I'm talking about, Self. What do you think about this time change? Well, I think that the Bible said that the Antichrist, when he comes, would seek to change time. Ooh. Change time. Wow. That's kind of like a big deal, isn't it? You ever think about that? Have you ever sat back and thought, hey, I wonder if that kind of fulfills a prophecy somewhere, that we keep changing time to make it fit for electricity and for light and for this, that, and the other thing. And I remember when Reagan, I think it was, one time we were, in an oil embargo, and it was, come to think of it, with Iran. Wow, sounds familiar, doesn't it? And I think gas prices were really high. Wow, sounds familiar, doesn't it? And we didn't have much oil, so we had to wait in line for hours just to get in so we could spend all our money anyways on it. Wow, sounds familiar, doesn't it? Things don't change much over the years, do they? But anyways, at that time, I remember they changed time 4 times. They had spring forward and then spring back and then spring back and then spring forward. So they kind of did it more than once, in a year. That's kind of strange, I kind of went, boy, talk about getting confused. And I thought of was that I was sitting here thinking, and I thought, it'd be kind of interesting to look at a sundial and figure out how you set it back an hour. Think about that. Now, some of you are kind of like me. You kind of go, I got an idea. And maybe you do, maybe you don't. But I kind of like to look at everything and see God in it. So I look at time change when man does it, and I see God in it by way of man trying to change what God has put in place. And of course, man is trying to rearrange time to fit his timing, not God's timing. I see that in prophecy a lot. How people are always telling you that the Lord's coming, but then they kind of tell you, well, He's coming, but, He's coming in 2012. And I always tell people, well, no, He's not, but, He is coming. Because, you see, they want to put Him into a certain time frame so that they can control Him. And changing time kind of does the same thing. When we change time to fit our own image of what we want, then we're trying to put God in a box to arrange our timing to fit the way we want His timing to fit our timing. Because after all, the sun still sets, the moon still rises, the rain still falls, and it does according to His timing. But does that mean that you and I's timing is changing or making Him change His? It's lighter, it's darker, it's this time or that time, but really, time hasn't changed at all. It's still going in the same cycle that God set it in order. Because He said He set the stars in the sky and the sun in its place for the times and the seasons, and he arranges the day and the night accordingly. We are the ones who try to change that by making up these different times when we say, well, the day starts at midnight. Well, that makes sense, unless you're a Jew. Then the day starts at sundown. Well, that makes sense, unless you're a Gentile. Well, the day starts in this certain time, and then if you're in the other part of the world, no, it doesn't. It starts when the sun comes up. And it comes up different there than it does for us here. So it's always interesting when people play with time, because I never know what time they have or what time it is, because in my mind, God's timing is perfect. Now, in your mind, you may say, but God said that a day is as 1,000 years and 1,000 years as a day. And I say, well, yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I think of quantum physics and kind of like, exponential realities of time and relativism dependent upon the dimensionality of whether you're stepping in one dimension or another, and where you relate to it as far as your own being is in extant existence with where you are compared to that person who's keeping track of the time, as Einstein once mentioned when he was talking about how the distance within light and the traveling thereof, the closer you approach light, that there would be differences of time, and that it would either stretch or apply to a person depending upon where they were in that relationship. Meaning that the equation of balances would have to be applied in that equation of time. Got it? See, that makes sense to me, where this whole idea of kind of trying to figure out whether it's an hour ahead or an hour back just doesn't make any sense to me. It sounds like it's going against what God said. Yeah, we do it anyways, but just one of those thoughts that I get, that goes, it's kind of like when I look at creation, I see all that God created and I'm amazed. But man wants to change that. He wants to evolve it into something different so that he can control it. You see, if man can prove that we evolve from something, then we could start working on evolving into something. You see what I'm saying? So we could take this whole thing that God created, and then we could change it to say that man is evolving, so we evolve it into something else to become something we think is better. Now, I don't know about you. Now, I kind of like, looking at my plants, and like this grape hyacinth over here that you can't see, and kind of like this tulips, that are all around me, and even these tomato plants, that I don't know if you can see them, but I kind of like the way God did it, because I know that since God did it, all I got to do is what God did, which he said he sent the sun and the moon, and he sent the seasons, and so I plant them in their season, and I water them, and I put soil in like he said in the Bible, good soil that would put down good roots, and I don't let the sun beat down on it, like he said our lives are like, that it wouldn't beat down and wipe us out, but I kind of take care of it, you know what I mean? And I make sure that it's, protected from the wind, and kind of grows up and then develops these fruits, that are really like, just luscious tomatoes, so that way I can eat and taste and see that the Lord is good and that he's got a good thing that he created. I really enjoy eating that. Have you ever seen what man makes? Every time that I eat something that man made as opposed to what God made, somehow someone's always telling me I'm going to get cancer from it. I'm beginning to think that if it's man-made, it's cancer. Guess what? I don't know. I'm not a naturalist. I like my burgers, and I go to McDonald's, and I go, drink Pepsi, but have you ever noticed that whenever man is making something after what God made, he's always messing it up and then having to rearrange it and change it and try to make it into something? That's kind of like what I think man did with this idea about evolution. It's like he played with the idea of, well, if we could make it sound like it evolves, then we can make it sound like everything we're doing is making our lives better. Now, I don't know about you, but when I look around at the world, and I look around at America, and frankly, I look around even at technology, it don't look like it's getting better than what God created. I can always see asphalt and plastics and trash, and all these things that, people want to spend more time on the internet than they want to spend on creation. They want to spend more time in cyber world than they want to spend discovering God can actually speak. They want to take more time to hear a devotional than they want to spend time going to heaven and discovering that God said, hey, if you would follow me all the days of your life and walk with me, I would take you like Enoch right into heaven, and we could talk. We could rap. We could get together and share some factual realities of the universe if you want to spend time with me. Because you see, there were mystics throughout all of Christendom. In Christianity, there's always been these people that were called mystics. Kind of like Enoch. You know, he's kind of a mystical kind of guy. Because you can't find him. He's gone. He took off. You know, he walked away with God. He was mystic. Well, there are other people that throughout history have kind of been the same way. They spent too much time in God's way and not enough time in man's way. And sometimes man got upset about that and kind of wiped them out. But there's something to be said about looking at the way God did stuff as opposed to what we keep doing with our stuff and thinking that we're making it so much better. I don't think so. Draw beauty from every flower and joy from the song of the birds and the color of the flowers. I am with you. When I wanted to express a beautiful thought, I made a lovely flower. When I want to express to man what I am, what my Father is, I strive to make a beautiful character. I develop the person to be likened unto me. Think of yourselves as my expression of attributes. You know, those things you ought to be. As a lovely flower is my expression of thought, and so it is, and you will strive in all, in spiritual beauty and thought and power, in health and in clothing, to be as fit an expression of me as you can, then recognize that as I am, so you shall be. Absorb beauty, for all I have created. I was there in the beginning, and in the beginning was the Word. As soon as the beauty of a flower or a tree is impressed upon your soul, it leaves an image there which reflects through your actions. You are mindful of that tree or flower, and you remember it, and you give thanks to God who created it. Remember that no thought of sin and suffering, of the approaching scorn and crucifixion, ever prevented my seeing the beauty of the flowers, or that with which I would accomplish in developing your character. Look for beauty and joy in the world around you, even as it is under a curse. Look at a flower until its beauty becomes part of your very soul, and you are able to recognize the Word of God in it. For even as I spoke it into existence, and it became so, and it was good, likewise I am able to show you how I am the Word of God, for I was there in the beginning. It will be given back to the world again by you in the form of a smile or a loving word, should you become my creation and my planting of the Lord unto those with whom you would deal with. Listen to a bird. Take this song as a message from my Father. Let it sink into your soul. That too will be given back to the world in ways I have said that I shall accomplish. Laugh more and laugh often. Love more and love often. I am with you. I am your Lord. I am the Lord of all creation. Isn't that cool? That Jesus is, was, and always shall be Lord of all. I mean, you know, I don't know about you, but every time that we get a new president, everybody wants to kind of throw him out. Throw the bum out. You know, they don't care who it is. The next one comes up, they're going to want him out. And someone else isn't going to like this, that, or the other thing. But you know, when you got a Lord of all, then you know you can always turn to him and say, Lord, if you're Lord of all, then you're in charge of all these presidents. You know, you're in charge of every one of these governments. And you're in charge of the whole world, because you got the whole world in your hands. And you know that you can trust God to bring out the good in all that we see and do, because he's working in us to perform with us that which he accomplished in creation. Even as it's under a curse, it shall be renewed as if by fire. And there will be 1,000 years of a time of peace, with which we would turn our spears and pruning hooks, or we would turn our swords into plowshares and our spears into pruning hooks. And we would learn more, no more, but we would learn maybe not to change time anymore, but to enjoy the time that God has given us with creation, for we are part of that. We were created, and the one who was not the one who did create us, the Son of God, has brought us to a place of enjoyment and enjoying Him as the Creator and Lord of all creation. I don't know about you, but I think it's time to let God have His timing, and for us to quit messing around with our timing.